Okay, that was Mob Psycho, Season 3, Episode 11. I'm just gonna be honest and transparent. I had a really tough time watching that episode. And for about, 60% of it, I'd say, I was crying and trying to be okay. And I think that a lot of that was me projecting myself and my own emotions onto Mob. And, my own mental health onto Mob, and how I feel about myself onto Mob. And I don't know how they're gonna take the story. I'm not saying this is how Mob feels, but when Ritsu was saying that this is a part of you that you just need to accept it, and I know that Mob ended up being like, it's not a part of me, don't do this, Ritsu. I'm not saying that that is the case for fact. I'm just saying what Ritsu was saying about just accepting this part of you and your emotions, and even when they get out of there, that's really hard for me to do. And it's the only thing, it's one of the biggest things I dislike about myself, and it's not something I can always control. So because of that, it was really difficult for me to watch a good portion of this episode. But again, it's in the best way possible, and I absolutely love the show. And at one point, I started crying because I don't want the show to end. And I've stated so many times that I'm excited that we're here, and I'm ready, and I am. But I don't want the show to end, you know?
I'm going to very much miss this show. I don't know if there's another season after this. I don't know if the manga extends after whatever the plot points of this
we avoid
chapter are. We avoid anything like that. So I don't know if there's anything else after this. And to not be able to kind of hang out for 20 minutes, 23 minutes with Kageyama Shigeo will make me sad, because I love his character a whole darn lot.
Going through it, we got some Suzuki, right? At the beginning of the episode, got some Suzuki.
Repay my debt.
I'm glad that he acknowledged how the boys are making an honest living now. Telling him to get out of there. And was repaying his debt, like you said. And I thought it was interesting that his take was that Mob seemed well and liberated.
Yeah, but also I think right after he said that, he was like, are you really the same person?
Exactly, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was the succession of how it was said, because I think I wrote it holding back, liberated, are you really the same person?
Yeah.
In that
Definitely
order.
Was.
And then we also got from that fight, I can't be as strong as you.
Oh,
man. It's so interesting there, because it's you can't blame Suzuki, because not every character is so completely selfless that they would sacrifice things. Suzuki has already lost. He lost his people. He already risked losing them one time, and now he's realized what he has done, and wants that kind of to repent on that, and to earn his family back, and to not lose them again. I mean, or lose them more and indefinitely. That would be his death. And he just realized that it was not a sacrifice. He was not willing to sacrifice losing a relationship with his son. And again, for a second time, basically walking away from his family. He was not willing to do that. And that's not something that is bad of him, that he was not willing to do that sacrifice here.
I completely agree with you. It wasn't bad of him. I think that the thing that made it so good to me was a couple minutes before it happened. It was during the fight of Suzuki Sho and Mob, and it was the first time really we saw Mob struggling, right? We see him in his blue outlines, and we see his mouth ajar, his eyes wide. We see a vein struggling within Mob, and he's really trying and struggling and trying to hold back this power. And you hear Suzuki, acknowledging that something's wrong, and that he can tell that Mob's struggling, and that he's fighting back inside. That, not all the damage that's been done already, but the fact that he is fighting inside was the cause of Suzuki saying, you really are strong. And then the acknowledgement of saying that I can't be that strong. It's an emotional strength, and it's a fortitude strength. It's not being so blatant and shoving it in our faces almost, how it's not about psychic powers, you know? And it's so well done though. Like when Suzuki ended up not doing it and saying, you know, I'm not that strong, I was like, God, that's perfect. Like, it's so perfect, you know? Everything is tying up.
Yeah. I mean it is, because in a way we got exactly what we needed for an exit and a tied up with a ribbon for Suzuki as a character himself. Like, yes, after the big battle when Mob basically sacrificed himself and took on, it became a vessel for Suzuki's just overwhelming power that was basically breaking him. We got, you know, Sho saying a comment to him and Suzuki, you know, getting arrested basically. And it seemed like, maybe that's all of the kind of what we'll see of that family dynamic from now on. Like, that's kind of it, is this idea that possibly maybe in the future there will be a positive relationship there, but that's not something for us to see.
Yeah.
And I think that this is even better because it's like, hey, remember this guy that was one of our examples of how strong Mob could be, and what if Mob chose to be a villain, you know? And Suzuki's one of the examples that we have. We have a few examples of an adult Esper that is basically like, hey, Mob could become this depending on how his life goes and what he chooses for himself. And to have this kind of, now he's choosing the people he loves. It, you know, when his whole art, like his whole plot line was that he was like solely focused and in love with himself, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how did this man ever like fall in love with someone enough to have kids with them? Like, that's how I felt when we first met him, because I was like, he's so focused on himself. And I didn't even know to hope for this kind of, that scene where it went back to the white and he's in the doorway and his wife and his son are there, and I was like, wow.
You want to know why it's so great? I think a lot of people have expectations of what it means to be redeemed as a character, and that sometimes, and a lot of time in media, it seems like redemption comes at self-sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Like he would have had to die there.
I think that redeeming comes at self-sacrifice when there aren't any real other options for redemption because of what you've done is so bad that you pushed everybody else away. The fact that he got to look back and it showed us that vision of the Doors and his family, it was like, it's not the only option. Like, you have that option to be redeemed as a father still, and you're lucky enough to have that still in front of you as an option. You should at least try. And I can imagine maybe any like resentment or harbored or like upsettedness of Suzuki just walking away, but he wasn't
leaving
just
Mob
walking
alone.
away.
Like when he did that, all I could think was, is Mob going to be upset that Mob's being left alone?
Yeah.
You know, like, but Mob doesn't want to fight any of these people. He doesn't want them to continue fighting him. And I think on a redemption point, I think, you know, Suzuki here could have chosen to redeem himself in the eyes of the world by sacrificing his life in a show of martyrdom, basically.
Yeah.
Attempting to stop Mob, but not doing it. And/or he could choose to continuously live the rest of his life trying to redeem himself to his family.
Yeah.
And he was shown to us as a very selfish, self-centered person from the get-go. And I think it's really great to see an example. I think I say this often on the channel, that you can be selfish and it be a positive thing for you.
Yeah.
And not make you a bad person in especially certain regard. And in that example, I just think that would move, that love that was there of that little selfishness that he would rather his family love him and make them proud than the entire world of strangers. I'm like, I can totally get behind that.
Yeah, I can too. I don't know, it was so well done, and then you get the.
I want to watch this episode again in like the most heartbreaking ways. Like, I feel like it was just so beautifully sad.
You want to know?
That I wish we could like replay it like right this second.
I'm so glad worse didn't happen to the Body Improvement Club. It was so painful to watch.
Yeah, thank God
Ritu
was right there.
It was very hard to watch.
When they showed the one character with the like shaved head. I'm guessing by the blue that it's actually a shaved head. When he was like being flown up in the air and it looked like his head, like it, the kind of what happened in the storyboarding was that it was like a darkness. You see the bar there of the bridge, and I was like, this man is about to die. Like the way he's gonna hit his head, there's just no way a normal human could survive that. And then for Ritsu, like it would have hit him either like right behind, like, you know, right here, or maybe smack dab on the back of the head, but that would have been death.
I completely agree, and it sucked seeing, but honestly, like, the whole, like, everything I said in the beginning of the discussion is 100% true, but I also got really emotional when they were telling him that they, regardless of this power, and if he's actually that strong, they already look up to him and acknowledge him, and like they're already proud of him, and like just because of him. And I was like, they're such good friends. Like they're such good buddies. How can you not love that? You know?
He's like, what bad traits does Kageyama really have? Like, he is a sweetheart, he's motivated, he's supportive, he's driven, he's fun, he's just wholesome. He would listen to you if you had a bad day.
Yeah.
He'd probably like buy you your favorite food and surprise you with it, or if he found out you were sick, he'd probably show up to your house with medicine. Like, he is just like the amount of love and the amount of for us seeing this kind of, oh, this is all of these emotions that have been kept in, and he's basically stored up and like suppressed them, but the amount of love that he still is able to let slip through just makes me think like that the love in there is not getting through yet is just so immense that it could swallow the rest of this whole. Because this is just such like an amazing boy.
Yeah, I think that the relationships that he has are so special because of who he is, and that's what brought all these amazing people to Mob and make them love Mob, is who Mob is as a person and how nice he is. And after what Ritsu said, like the image of the only person in the world that he hasn't been nice to is himself, so that everybody else can be happy in his mind. Mm-hmm. Because the best case scenario is that everybody else is happy, and is like, as long as he can bear that burden, like, that's fine. He'll lock himself in the room, you know?
And there's a struggle here with Ritsu where we know that Ritsu was so scared of whatever that thing was inside Mob that he didn't push the subject of trying to talk about feelings or call out Mob for his suppression of his emotions. He decided to take kind of a back burner seat of just supportive younger brother that's not super invested in your life, but is actually super invested secretly in your life and watching over you. And I think that just seeing Ritsu's kind of like, should I have been doing something earlier on to prove to you that you could have talked to me?
Need to change.
I need to be a younger brother that you can talk to, and you didn't need to change. And should I have done more to make you feel like you didn't have to keep a giant part of who you are secret? Like, I don't think anyone would be happy living day to day, seeing one of their loved ones consistently having to not smile, not laugh anymore, just so they could make sure they don't cry anymore and make sure they don't get angry anymore. Like, you have to have the good and the bad. To get rid of the crying and the sadness and the anger, he also had to get rid of all of the joy and expression of joy, and his family didn't get to see that anymore.
That's the hardest part for me. Like, the change, like being able to see, and you know what's even harder? The realization that Ritsu might feel like he's been so selfish that he hasn't even noticed or cared enough, or he's thought negative things about what Mob's done for all these years, when in reality, you know, Mob's the one who has lost everything. And let me tell you, man, like, negative emotions are bad, right? Or like, that's easy to say, like, oh, sadness sucks. But I've been in a place where you can't feel any emotion, really. And and like for long periods of time for the benefit of other people and even for the benefit of what I thought was myself. No balance, but just got to put a Band-Aid on it, quick fix.
It's all or nothing.
That's a really tough place to be. Like for a while, it's a really tough place.
And maybe in a way, Ritsu did feel like, oh well, how we're living life right now. Yes, I feel bad that my older brother is having to suppress and miss out on some of the joys of life, but at least we're all safe, and at least I don't have to deal with that kind of like the scary thing that I'm dreading, which is him inevitably being unleashed in some horrible way, and that I'm not strong enough to stop him or save him. And it's like you can't be mad at Ritsu for any of that. Like, you can't be mad at him for being like, he did in his own way have some amount of like urgency at getting stronger. Like his wish so bad to be able to be psychic, and for him to reflect on that now and realize it was because he hoped to build up his powers enough to one day be able to protect his brother from himself. But I doubt he thought that it was going to be tomorrow, like he probably thought he had way more time, and maybe he wasn't in that mad of a rush. I'm not sure. He might blame himself for taking any leisure time at all to get to the point that he has now.
It's like when you're thinking back to the episode that we got, I think it was again episode 5 of season 1, when we got the last scene being Ritsu checking on Mob apologizing for the incident, Ritsu misunderstanding in a joking way, and then he's fearful on the couch, right? Mm-hmm. Like Ritsu had said to Mob that like he wished that he could he couldn't even argue with his brother at fear of that. Mm-hmm. And like and that's completely real and legitimate, and that is Ritsu's life and perspective as the younger brother and the life that he's lived. But it's not the reality of the situation. It's that both of them were working just in separate ways to try to make sure that never happened. Mob obviously that was his worst nightmare, you know?
And for Ritsu, it was also blown out of proportion. Like the Mob we know now, little upsets and aren't going, and little talks about feelings aren't going to necessarily push him to this literal point of being knocked unconscious in what we've seen. And so I think there was a definite like babying of the situation, and I don't know if that's the right word, but like I'm just gonna not touch emotions at all with my brother and just completely avoid it, where I think that Mob could have probably handled some talks and some connection.
I'm just gonna be honest and transparent. I'm just gonna be honest and transparent. I'm just gonna be honest and transparent.
I'm just gonna be honest and transparent.